My name is Jedediah Ashford. I am 35 years old, and I work as a wilderness guide for Northern Manitoba expeditions, leading hunting and fishing trips into the remote areas around Wapusk National Park. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from, please. I've been guiding in Northern Manitoba for 12 years, taking clients on caribou hunts and polar bear viewing expeditions in terrain that most people will never see. Wapusk National Park contains some of the most isolated country in North America, where boreal forest meets Arctic tundra and wildlife outnumbers humans by thousands to one. This happened last October during caribou hunting season, when I was guiding two experienced hunters from Ontario on a week-long expedition into wilderness east of Churchill. We'd flown in to a remote lake, 80 miles northeast of town, accessible only by float plane, and planned to track caribou migration routes through the region. The first 3 days went perfectly. Weather was cold but clear, around 20 degrees with light snow at night. We'd located caribou groups, and my clients had both taken animals. Everyone was satisfied with productive hunting in spectacular wilderness. On the fourth morning, we hiked 6 miles from base camp to an area where I'd seen fresh caribou sign during scouting. Large herds had moved through recently, leaving obvious trails in the tundra grass where caribou feed during migration. We set up overlooking a valley where caribou typically traveled, expecting to see animals during morning feeding. But as we waited, something seemed wrong with normal wilderness patterns. The area was too quiet, no bird calls, no small animal movement, none of the background sounds you expect in healthy country. Around 10 a.m., one of my clients pointed to movement on the far ridge, maybe 400 yards away. Through binoculars, we could see what appeared to be a person walking along the ridgeline, following the same direction as caribou trails. This was concerning because we were over 80 miles from the nearest community in completely roadless wilderness. Nobody else should have been there. And anyone walking alone in that country during hunting season was either lost or up to something dangerous. I watched through my spotting scope, trying to determine who it might be. The figure was tall, maybe 6.5 feet, walking with unusually long stride that covered ground faster than normal human walking. The posture was wrong, too erect, arms swinging in a way that didn't look human. Both my clients observed through the scope and immediately commented that something was off. The figure didn't look like someone wearing normal hunting gear, and movement through terrain was unlike any human walking they'd seen. As we continued watching, the figure stopped on the ridge and turned in our direction. Even at 400 yards, I had the distinct feeling it was looking directly at us, though I couldn't make out details. Then it raised both arms above its head and began waving them back and forth in large, deliberate motions. Not like someone signaling for help, but like something was deliberately making itself visible from great distance. After 2 minutes of waving, the figure resumed walking, but now moved in our direction, following land contours, but clearly heading toward our position. Something about the situation felt fundamentally wrong, triggering every survival instinct I'd developed. I made a decision against everything I normally do. We were leaving immediately, abandoning our hunt. We packed quickly and began hiking back toward camp. But each time I looked back, the figure appeared closer, still following our direction. Halfway to camp, I stopped and used binoculars to scan behind us. The figure was visible on a rise maybe 200 yards back, much closer than it should have been given terrain and time. Through binoculars, I could see more disturbing details. The figure was over 7 feet tall with wrong proportions for human being. Arms too long, torso too broad, covered in dark brown hair. Most concerning, it was clearly tracking us, following our exact route through complex terrain with intelligence and purpose. I told my clients we were being followed by something non-human. Both men were experienced outdoorsmen who didn't question my assessment. We increased pace significantly, moving as quickly as terrain allowed through muskeg, around lakes, across broken rock. Each time I checked behind, the figure maintained consistent distance of about 200 yards, never closer but never falling behind, despite our increased speed through difficult country. We reached base camp and immediately prepared to leave. I contacted our pilot for emergency pickup, explaining dangerous wildlife situation. While waiting, I kept watch with binoculars as the figure appeared at clearing edge, maybe 100 yards away, just standing and watching us pack. Through binoculars, I could see it clearly for the first time. Definitely not human, though maintaining humanoid shape, covered in dark brown hair, powerfully built, with face that was wrong in ways that made it uncomfortable to look at. The eyes were intelligent, focused, studying our activities with obvious understanding. Our pilot arrived within 2 hours. As we loaded gear, the figure remained motionless at tree line, watching everything. Just before takeoff, my client pointed out tracks in sand where it had been standing. Large barefoot prints, 18 inches long, showing it had circled our entire camp while we packed. I reported the incident to Manitoba Conservation as potentially dangerous wildlife encounter. Response was professional but skeptical. They took notes, but clearly didn't believe we'd encountered anything beyond large black bear. I spoke with Cree elders in Churchill area, people whose families maintain traditional knowledge about wilderness. They described the encounter using words that translate to the tall ones, beings that live in remote areas and occasionally interact with humans in their territory. According to traditional teachings, these beings are intelligent and territorial, but generally not dangerous to humans who show respect. Our encounter followed typical patterns, observing from distance, making presence known, then ensuring we left their territory. I continue guiding in northern Manitoba, but I am much more aware now of signs we might not be alone in remote areas. When areas feel wrong in ways I can't explain, I trust instincts and move to different locations. My name is Thaddeus Northcott. I am 48 years old, and I work as a commercial trapper operating under license in areas surrounding Atikaki Provincial Wilderness Park in eastern Manitoba. I've been running trap lines for 26 years, working remote waterways and forests, where fur-bearing animals provide living for those who understand wilderness isolation. Atikaki covers over 3 million acres of pristine boreal forest, with areas so remote, I am often the only human to visit during entire winter seasons. This happened last February during peak trapping season, when temperatures held steady around -30 and snow depths made travel possible only by snowshoe or dog sledding. I was checking trapline section along Bloodvein River, area I've worked 8 years. I run 6 sled dogs, traveling between remote cabins for checking traps and processing pelts. The work requires moving through terrain that challenges experienced wilderness travelers, but it is lifestyle I've chosen and understand thoroughly. On this morning, I was traveling between cabins following frozen Bloodvein River route I'd used dozens of times. Weather was clear and cold, perfect dog sledding conditions with good visibility and snow that allowed fast travel. 10 miles from starting point, my lead dog suddenly stopped and began showing extreme agitation. Entire team became nervous, whining and pulling against lines, refusing to continue despite commands and encouragement. In 26 years with sled dogs, I've learned to trust their instincts, absolutely. Dogs perceive threats humans miss, and their survival depends on avoiding predators and hazards. When well-trained team refuses to proceed, there is always good reason. I stopped and examined area ahead. River appeared normal, with good ice conditions and no obvious obstacles. But dogs remained agitated, focused on something I couldn't identify. Through binoculars, I scanned river valley and surrounding forest, looking for wolves. My primary concern. Wolf pack could pose serious threat to sled dogs, and behavior was consistent with dogs detecting wolves nearby. Quarter mile ahead, I spotted movement in forest on north side of river. Through binoculars, I could see large dark figure moving between trees, roughly parallel to river, but staying within forest rather than traveling on open ice. The figure was too large for wolf and moving wrong for any regional animal. It appeared bipedal, walking upright, but with size and bulk suggesting something much larger than human being. I continued watching as figure moved through forest, and it became clear it was pacing our progress, maintaining position parallel to our location while staying hidden within tree line. Dogs remained agitated, constantly looking toward forest, whining, and showing clear fear. These were animals experienced with wilderness predators, but their reaction was more intense than anything I'd seen. I continued along river at slower pace, keeping constant watch and maintaining ready access to rifle. For next hour, figure continued moving alongside us, occasionally disappearing when terrain blocked view, but always reappearing further ahead. Around noon, I stopped for rest and feeding, positioning sled on open river with good visibility. While dogs ate, I kept forest watch with binoculars, trying to get better look at whatever had been following. The figure emerged from forest at river's edge, maybe 200 yards downstream. For first time, I had clear view, and what I saw challenged everything I understood about Manitoba wilderness wildlife. It was enormous, easily 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair, built with mass and bulk that dwarfed any bear I'd encountered. Proportions were roughly humanoid but wrong. Arms too long, torso too broad, head too large. Most disturbing was its behavior. Instead of cautious, evasive actions typical of wild animals encountering humans, it stood openly at river's edge, clearly visible, studying our group with obvious intelligence and curiosity. Through binoculars, I could see face clearly, and eyes showed awareness and focus that was unmistakably intelligent. This wasn't animal operating on instinct. It was observing with purpose and understanding. Dogs were near panic, pulling frantically and trying to flee despite training. I'd never seen them react with such terror to wildlife encounter, and their behavior convinced me whatever we faced was far more dangerous than normal predator. Figure remained at river's edge for 5 minutes, then turned and walked back into forest with fluid, powerful movement. It disappeared. But I felt it was still watching from concealment. I packed immediately and continued toward destination cabin as quickly as dogs could travel, constantly checking behind and scanning forest. Dogs remained nervous, but gradually calmed as we gained distance. That evening at remote cabin, I made detailed notes and marked exact location on maps. I also examined dogs for injury or stress, but they appeared physically unharmed despite obvious fear. Next morning, I found large tracks in snow around cabin. Barefoot prints, roughly humanoid, but much larger than human foot, maybe 20 inches long with stride pattern, showing something had circled cabin multiple times during night. I followed tracks, but they led into dense forest where snow conditions made tracking difficult. Prints showed whatever made them was extremely heavy, breaking through snow crust that barely showed impressions from my snowshoes. When I returned to town after trapping season, I spoke with Ojibwe elders in Bissett area about the incident. They described encounters with beings they call words translating to the giant ones, beings living in deepest forest parts. Normally elusive, but occasionally observing human activities. According to traditional teachings, these beings exist in most remote areas and may observe or make presence known under specific conditions. Elders weren't surprised and explained the area was known for such encounters. I continue trapping because it is my livelihood, but I am more aware of signs I might not be alone and trust dogs' instincts, even more when they react to things I can't identify. My name is Augustus Grimwald. I am 53 years old, and I work as fishing guide specializing in remote wilderness lakes throughout Grass River system in northern Manitoba. I've been guiding fishing expeditions 19 years, taking clients to lakes accessible only by float plane or canoe, where northern pike and lake trout grow to sizes rarely seen in accessible waters. Grass River includes pristine wilderness where human presence is so rare wildlife shows no fear. This happened last August during peak season, when I was guiding 2 Minnesota clients on a week-long expedition to remote lake system 40 miles northeast of the PAs. We'd flown in with bush pilot returning 7 days later, leaving us isolated with no communication except emergency satellite beacon. Me clients were experienced wilderness fishermen, both retired, making 4th consecutive trip with me. They understood wilderness camping, handled canoes competently, and knew realities of extended trips where help is days away. We'd established base camp on island in Main Lake, location providing good fishing access, while offering protection from bears attracted to food supplies. Island was 2 acres with good tent sites and clear lake views. First 4 days were perfect. Weather ideal. Fishing excellent. Clients catching lake trout and northern pike exceeding previous trips. Everyone was having wilderness experience that keeps people returning. 5th morning. We launched canoes early to fish section requiring hour paddling to reach. Area included connected bays and channels where large northern pike congregated during summer feeding. We'd been fishing 2 hours, working through channels, with good success. When we encountered something that changed our trip atmosphere in narrow channel connecting bays, we found campsite that hadn't been there during previous scouting. Camp consisted of single tent, properly set up with guy lines and stakes, plus canoe pulled ashore and camping gear arranged around fire ring, showing recent use. Everything appeared normal and well, organized, suggesting experienced wilderness campers. But no one was at campsite, and something felt wrong, triggering immediate concern. Tent was zipped shut, canoe positioned as if someone had just landed, gear spread as if people were actively using it. I called out loudly, identifying myself as fishing guide, asking if anyone needed assistance. No response. We waited several minutes calling repeatedly, but heard nothing from campsite or surrounding area. My clients were as puzzled as me. In combined decades of wilderness experience, we'd never encountered campsite appearing actively occupied with no people visible or responsive. Situation violated normal wilderness patterns and basic camping safety. I decided we needed investigating to determine if someone might be injured or need help. We paddled to shore and examined campsite while continuing to call and identify ourselves. Tent contained 2 sleeping bags laid out, as if recently slept in, plus personal items, including clothes, toiletries, and journal. Fire ring contained cold ashes, showing recent use, and food supplies were properly stored in bear-proof containers. Most concerning, we found no tracks leading from campsite. Sandy shore should have shown clear footprints if someone walked away, but sand was smooth except for our tracks from approaching. I opened journal, hoping to find information about who was camping and where they might have gone. Entries were dated within past week, describing fishing trip by 2 Ontario men having excellent success in same areas we'd been fishing. Final entry, dated 2 days earlier, described plans to fish northern lake system next morning, then return for pickup by bush pilot. According to journal, they should have been picked up day before our encounter. But gear was still there, tent still up. No sign of where they'd gone. Remote location made walking out impossible, and canoe was only one visible. I used satellite beacon to contact emergency services, reporting abandoned campsite with 2 missing people. Within 6 hours, we had search aircraft, followed by full search and rescue operation, with ground teams and specialized wilderness searchers. Search continued 3 days, covering entire lake system and surrounding forests. They found no trace beyond campsite, no tracks, additional gear, or signs of what happened. I decided we needed investigating to determine if someone might be injured or need help. We paddled to shore and examined campsite while continuing to call and identify ourselves. Tent contained 2 sleeping bags laid out, as if recently slept in, plus personal items including clothes, toiletries, and journal. Fire ring contained cold ashes showing recent use, and food supplies were properly stored in bear-proof containers. Most concerning, we found no tracks leading from campsite. Sandy shore should have shown clear footprints if someone walked away, but sand was smooth except for our tracks from approaching. I opened journal hoping to find information about who was camping and where they might have gone. Entries were dated within past week, describing fishing trip by 2 Ontario men, having excellent success in same areas we'd been fishing. Final entry, dated 2 days earlier, described plans to fish northern lake system next morning, then return for pickup by bush pilot. According to journal, they should have been picked up day before our encounter, but gear was still there, tent still up, no sign of where they'd gone. Remote location made walking out impossible, and canoe was only one visible. I used satellite beacon to contact emergency services, reporting abandoned campsite with 2 missing people. Within 6 hours, we had search aircraft, followed by full search and rescue operation with ground teams and specialized wilderness searchers. Search continued 3 days, covering entire lake system and surrounding forests. They found no trace beyond campsite, no tracks, additional gear, or signs of what happened. Search teams discovered sand around tent had been disturbed, in pattern suggesting something large had circled camp multiple times. Disturbances were too large and deep for missing campers. On 7th day, our pickup arrived, and we were evacuated with search teams. Missing campers were never found, and disappearance remains unexplained. Case was turned over to RCMP investigators, but no evidence explained what happened. I spoke with Cree elders in the Pesa about incident, seeking traditional knowledge perspective. They described Grass River system as place where boundary between physical and spirit worlds is thin, particularly in remote areas rarely visited. According to traditional teachings, certain lakes are home to beings existing, partially in our world and other dimensions. These beings can cause people to become lost in ways not following normal rules, leading them where they can't be found, despite extensive searching. Elders explained such disappearances have occurred in most remote areas, for as long as their people traveled those waterways. They advised showing wilderness respect and understanding some places are more dangerous in unexplainable ways. I continue guiding in Grass River system because it is my profession and wilderness is too beautiful to avoid entirely. But I am more careful about camp locations, avoiding areas that feel wrong in rationally unexplainable ways. When I encounter campsites or human signs where none should be, I trust instincts and leave immediately rather than investigating. Some wilderness mysteries are better left alone.